Hi there, students. To tell apart, to tell two things apart, to tell the difference between two things. So, identical twins. Normally they look very similar, but it's normally possible to tell them apart. There are slight differences. Okay, so to tell them apart, maybe identical twins when they're small babies, it can be very difficult to tell them apart. One of the things I've been learning to do in recent years is tell different types of wood apart, to be able to identify different types of wood. So to be able to tell pine and pitch pine apart, that's an easy one. Can you tell oak and ash apart? Okay, so to tell the difference between different woods. Can you tell cherry and walnut apart? Okay, so to tell the difference between the two, to distinguish the difference. So if you can tell two people apart, you're able to recognize the differences between them, and therefore you can identify each of them. European people or Caucasian people find it very difficult to tell Chinese people apart, or to tell Oriental people apart. But the same goes, Oriental people say that it's very difficult to tell Caucasians apart. Very often on the market there are various products that seem to be identical, and it can be impossible to tell them apart. This was making me think of white brands in supermarkets. White brands are normally made by large producers, so that in the end of the day it's difficult to tell the products apart if you don't look at the packaging. Okay, so to discern the difference between them, can you tell the twins apart? Can you distinguish between them? Can you see the differences? Can you identify two things that look similar? So these two birds are very difficult to tell apart. Something that is made of gold and something that is gold plated can be very difficult to tell apart. Maybe you're going to need to test them to check the difference. Okay, so it's difficult to tell them apart. It's almost impossible to tell them apart. These two signatures are incredibly similar. Can you tell them apart? As the babies are twins and they are very much alike, it's impossible to tell them apart. So the jobs that they do are identical. It's impossible to tell them apart. So is to see the difference, is to notice the difference. You can. It's to do with identifying things that look very, very similar. Okay, so things that are almost identical but not. So the man gave me a fake €20 note and a genuine €20 note, and I couldn't tell them apart. I couldn't tell apart the counterfeit €20 note and the real one. Maybe if the Central European Bank can't tell them apart, does that make it a fake? Okay, so to tell things apart, to analyze. The teacher could easily tell the twins apart because they had different haircuts. Maybe one of the things that's difficult for a doctor is to tell apart various different diseases, because normally diseases have a spectrum of symptoms. So to be able to see the difference between two very, very similar things, between two very similar people, Yeah, the question, can you tell Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola apart? Can you tell the difference? Many people have difficulty telling expensive perfumes and cheap perfumes apart. When it comes to wine, I'm a real Philistine, and I find it quite difficult to tell apart an expensive wine and a cheap wine. Depends on the wine. Okay, so to notice as different, to distinguish between them, to discern that they are not the same, to tell apart, to tell two things apart, or to tell various different things apart, to perceive the difference between them. Okay, tell them apart. This is a separable phrasal verb. Formality, to tell apart. 4.5 in formality. Am I going to go to a 5 in formality? I think 4.5, use anywhere except in a very formal situation where I might use distinguish or something like that. So, to tell apart.